G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach for DR and welcome to my final team reveal for 2023. I'm pumped, I'm excited, I'm a little bit nervous. Am I 100% happy? No, but are we ever leading into round one? There's always a couple of extra players that you want to squeeze in, but at the end of the day, we've got 10 mil in the salary cap, only 30 spots to fill. We all have the same blank canvas, the same rules, so good luck to everyone this year. I genuinely hope that you go well. But before we get into the team reveal for 2023, please bear with me just for a couple of minutes because there are some special thank yous that I do need to give. This has been the most enjoyable preseason that I've had in my Supercoach career for many, many reasons. So you can already see here on the screen that I was lucky enough to be featured on Weekend Sunrise and on the Channel 7 News. That experience and opportunity just opened up doors for me like I couldn't have believed. So thank you very much, guys. If you haven't checked it out yet, I will upload it to my channel. It was all about how I use Supercoach to teach maths at school. I'm a primary school teacher, if you didn't know already. So thank you very much. Such a wonderful opportunity. And I'm currently working on a really exciting project, very much related to this with my cousin, which we're hoping to launch early next year. I can't say too much about it, but extremely, extremely excited about that. A big thank you to Al Payton from the Herald Sun. He wrote a feature article on me. Got to meet him for a couple of hours. He came into my school, got to chat with the kids. We got to chat a bit of Supercoach as well, which was probably the best thing of all. But yeah, what a terrific bloke. Thank you very much, Al. I really appreciate everything that you've done for me, mate, and look forward to having a couple of drinks with you, hopefully tomorrow night, mate. Looking really, really forward to that. You can also see on the screen here that we have reached 4,000 subscribers. This is extremely humbling. I've said this a lot, but when I first created the channel, I thought, if we can get maybe 10 viewers here, if I can help a couple of people out that are maybe new to the game, job done. I'm really happy. But to see how the channel's grown in such a short period of time has just blown me away. So thank you very much, guys. It would be absolutely, obviously, nothing without you. Now, there are some other thank yous notes to give. I'm going to go through these really, really quickly, I promise. You can see there the boys from the Jock Reynolds crew. I was lucky enough to go on the Jock Reynolds Mailbag podcast with Damo and Clarkey, two beautiful, beautiful gentlemen. And again, that did really open up some doors for me. It was a real dream for me featuring on the Jock Reynolds podcast because I've been a big fan for years and years now. Thank you very much, guys. Much love. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Dave from Supercoach Rings, Supercoach Champions. Check that out there. So I'm not doing that justice with the webcam, but these rings are phenomenal. Dave's donated 2 to me this year, 1 for my school league and another one for the winner of my group. So if you're not in the group yet, I'll chuck the code in the description. Unlimited entries and some great prizes up for grabs. Only 99 bucks. Great quality rings as well. If you're in a 20-person league, it's less than $5 each. And wouldn't that be great to take home if you are the winner? So definitely check those guys out. I've said thank you to Sunrise, the Herald Sun. My man, Jonathan Fernando, going to be a regular on this channel now. He's just dropped his team preview, so make sure you check that out. The most detailed one that you'll see from anyone this preseason. I guarantee you of that. He's going to come on for our Supercoach Swordplay podcast as well. He just joined me for the 12 steps to winning Supercoach. Make sure you check that one out. I'd almost say that's a must watch. So can't thank you enough, brother. Look forward to more this season as well. Just last night, I joined Benny and Chris from Supercoach Insider to discuss the top 10 forwards. Make sure you check that out because Benny wore a very interesting jumper. I loved it, but depending on your fashion sense, it'll either be the best or worst that you've ever seen in your life. Love those boys as well. Thanks, fellas. George, the absolute GOAT from Fantasy Take TV. He hates it when I call him the GOAT, so I've done that on purpose. Thanks for coming on as always, mate. Chris Dorry, the AFL draft expert. If you need to know anything about the rookies, he is the man to chat to. Thanks for coming on, mate, for the Collingwood team preview. Really, really enjoyable there. Spills, my brother, my main man. I don't even need to say anything about Spills. You know what my love is like for Spills. Steve from SDS Supercoach. Mate, you're an absolute up-and-comer. Great to get to know you, and you're doing awesome things. So keep pumping out, mate. Big Joe and Jay from the Big Joe and Jay. Jeez. Big Jay and Joey from the Centre Bounce. You are awesome blokes. I think about 30 subscribers away from the magical 1K. So please, guys, if you haven't subscribed to these two already, do it. Let's get into 1,000 before the start of round one because they really, really do deserve that. I'll get through it quick. Scoops, I'll tell you what, don't give me any AFL journalists. Don't give me the purple-headed warrior or anyone else like that. Scoops is the main man, gets all the inside goss. Thanks for coming on, brother. Appreciate that. Dan Mashman, aka Freo Tragic, writer at supercoachtalk.com, not only came on for one, not two, but three team previews. Really appreciate that, mate. And great to be able to call you a friend now as well. The blokes at Dr. Supercoach, thank you for welcoming me with open arms into the Slack community, one of the best communities that you could hope to get involved with. Well worth it. So make sure that you join up if you haven't already. The OG Shorty from Shorty Superstars came on for the Geelong preview and also going to feature regularly on our Swordplay podcast as well. So the best storyteller in the game. And as I mentioned, the OG of Supercoach YouTubers. We probably wouldn't be here without Shorty. The blokes from Supercoach, Edge, Liam and Damon. Two loose units, but two of my favourite people in the whole community. Thanks for coming, guys. Jeez, you did your homework for the Gold Coast Suns team preview. And last but not least, there we have Al Payton. Already mentioned you, mate. Thank you for everything you've done this preseason. And as I mentioned before, the channel would be nothing without our subscribers, but particularly our members. Only $3.99 a month if you are interested. All the proceeds go to Beyond Blue and you get a heap of perks. So to the members, thank you very, very much. I'll give you a quick shout out now. Ethan Davies, Mark Goodwin, Brett M, Keelan, Banger, Karen, Matty Crow, Izzy, Mike Goodwin, Pete Dockery, Kamikaze, Benny Leonard, Kenneth Brown, Bad Machine, White Shadow, Greg Wilson, Benny Butcher, Zakari, Causa Blackledge, DM to Devlin, Cormac Pete, H, thank you very much. Always great having a chat with you, mate. Carl Meany, Colin Young, Cody, Charmin Kenny Stockdale, Rickby G, and John O'Carroll, another one of the OJ members, along with Causa and H as well. Thank you so much for all your support, guys. I very, very much look forward to our regular video chats during the season as well. If I've missed you, I am very, very sorry, but I think that's all the thank yous for now. Let's start by looking at the pool of players that I'll be selecting from this year. All right, so let's take a look at this player pool. These are the blokes I'll be selecting from this year and the players that have either been on my watch list or made their way into my side at some stage during the preseason. So the defenders at 600K, I was fading Sinclair since day one, Sicily, Stewart, Dawson, and Doherty. So I will be selecting at least one of those blokes this year. There were really three 500K type defenders that I did consider, and that's Dacos, Young, and Ridley. The mid prices, we had players like Yo, Hunt, Clark, Gota, Crozier, Caulfield, and Jones. And when it comes to the rookies, yeah, we're pretty blessed, aren't we? McKenna, Jimby, Wilmot, Constable, Chesser, Cowan, Chincotta, and Wagner. Then onto the midfield, 600K plus, the real big boys, Laird, Oliver, Neal, Bont, Miller, Steele, and Parrish. The mid-prices, there was only really two. Sorry, when I say mid-prices, that mid-500 range, you know, you've got the big boys, then that next level down. It was really out of Titch and Green for me, if any. The mid-prices, Hoppersheed, Warpool, Wanganeen, Millerer, Callahan, and Setterfield. Six of those blokes that were on my radar. And the mid-rookies, Ashcroft, Phillips, Philippou, McKenzie, Johnson, Richards, Baker, and Drury. 8 of those guys in total. On to the next page, we've got our rucks. Wow, I was really hoping to go with a placeholder this year. Am I? You'll have to check out in a minute. But Marshall, Darcy, Whitscorn, and English as a big 5. Cameron Lysett as those mid-prices. And then Asava and Madden as the ruck rookies. And then the forward line, the 500-plus blokes, really only 4 of those. Dunks, Cogs, Rosie, and Taranto. Heap of mid-prices are on my list. Goulden, Fife, Bruin, Zeeble, Cunnington, Flanders, and Allen. And then the forward rookies, we've got McLean, King, Sin, Davey, Green, Comben, Van Ruin, Chandler, and Sheasel. So they'll be the blokes that I'll be selecting from this year. Let's now get into it. There has been a lot of competition for the prestigious D1 position in my side this year. Have I gone with Sicily, Stewart, Dawson, Doherty? Well, I've gone with the latter in Sam Doherty. Now, Janeth really sold me this pick during our Carlton team preview. We saw what he did on the weekend, 154 Supercoach points. And one thing that's great about Sam Doherty is his dual role. And we don't say that about too many players. We have a lot of players that may be playing through the mid and then up forward, which isn't really great for Supercoach scoring. But the 2 roles that Sam Doherty sees himself playing this year are both fantastic for Supercoach scoring. We can see his split there. 35% CBAs when he's in the middle. He loves to tackle, gets a heap of the peel, scores at ease there, and also had 42% of the kick-ins as well. We know what he's like in defense. He's the general there. They love to get the ball in his hands, kicks the ball regularly, has a great kick-to-handball ratio as well. So all in all, I think Doherty is a fantastic pick. We know he's got premium scoring history. If you look a few years back, he was the number one man down there, and that's something that I certainly haven't forgotten. So great to see that Sam Doherty's healthy, and I have forgiven him now for vacating Brisbane. At D2, I would love to have another one of these 600k plus players in my side, but I've had to budget slightly here and go with who I think is the best buy in the 500k range, Mr. Jordan Ridley. This was a really, really tough selection to make, but at the end of the day, I think he gives some pretty good value for money, and I think that Jordan Ridley should get pretty close to the top 8 defenders for average this year. 128 Supercoach points over the weekend with 12 marks. Now, we're not expecting him to necessarily get 12 marks every game. It's been well documented that the weather conditions were absolutely terrible, so probably did play into Ridley's hands, but all you can do is play in the conditions that you're presented with, and he played really, really well. Averaged 133 from rounds 1 to 5 in 2021, playing basically an identical role. I know this because I actually jumped on Jordan Ridley, traded out Lockie Neal, jumped on him, was great for a couple of weeks, and unfortunately went down with injury. But I think that Brad Scott's game plan is also going to play into Jordan Ridley's hands as well. They're chipping it around a little bit down there, and another player who they love to get the ball in his hands. He is a phenomenal kick of the football. You can really rely on him for great disposal efficiency as well. He's got a really nice ceiling. So, look, due to the fact that he's got a nice opening run where we don't think he's going to need to play that third tool or really lock down on any of these players, I think that he will be the loose man back there. He'll be intercepting. So, at 500 odd K, I think he's a pretty good pick at the price. At D3, it's time for some mid-price badness. Welcome to the side, Elliot Yeo. This was a pretty easy selection. A very, very highly owned player here. Only the 78 Supercoach points on the weekend, 43% CBAs. We know what his role is going to be like. Very similar to a Sam Doherty. We'll play it down back as well as run through the midfield as well. So terrific role for Supercoach scoring. Has been a premium of the past, 102.1, 107.9 and 107.6 from 2017 to 2019. I know that was a few years back, but it does go to show when he's fit, when he's firing in the right role, he can score really, really well. Certainly a durability risk. Geez, he's played, I think, 28 games in the last 3 seasons or something ridiculous like that. But as I've got there, we are all going down together. There's been a couple of people that have jumped off, but I think it's certainly a safer move to start Elliot Yeo this year. And one thing I really like towards the end of that practice game is that nice long-range goal from outside 50. Goes to show that he still had some strength in the legs. Maybe he was just warming into the season. I'm expecting round one that he'll come out pretty hard. If he averages 89 for the season, he gives us 150k. And even if he goes just under that, I think he's going to provide some good on-field scoring as well as some decent cash to make. There have been a lot of players that have been running through this position for me at D4. It's been Goda, it's been Caulfield, but a man really put his hand up during the last practice match, and that's Liam Jones. What a terrific game this bloke played on the weekend. I tell you what, he has been a real saviour for my side because I really needed someone in between that price range of around 190 to 220k. And Liam Jones absolutely fits the bill. 101 Supercoach points in the Pracky match with 9 intercept marks. He's got really, really solid job security. We know that there are a lot of tools that they can select from down back or up forward, but Jones has 100% job security. He will be in the side every week. Age is a bit of a minor concern. We know that he's getting older, but remember last year he was able to sit out of the game, maybe freshened his body up. Don't think he's lost much touch. Well, what we saw in the weekend certainly wouldn't suggest that at all. And all he needs to average to make 150k is 69. Now, he has done 60s in the past. I'm not expecting 100 plus scores every week, but he is someone that will have some spike games, particularly playing that role. And what was really, really interesting in the Pracky match, he scored 101 points. I think there were 6 or 7 other dogs that actually scored more than him. So that was pretty crazy. And they did have a large slice of the Supercoach pie. But I'm really comfortable with Liam Jones at D4 at the moment. Gives me some good on-field scoring as well as really good job security. So pretty happy for now. Thank you very much, Liam Jones, for coming from the clouds. At D5, this bloke should be in everyone's side, should be in 100% of teams. It is Ruben Jimby. Another really easy selection here. 99 Supercoach points on the weekend, if you don't mind. 43% CBAs, had really low time on ground. I believe that was in the 50s, so a fantastic points per minute rate. He's got a mature body. He's a bit of man-child, and West Coast would have been absolutely wrapped being able to trade down, still get this bloke, as well as bring in Elijah Hewitt as well. 59 average will give him 150k. I think we can absolutely lock that away. And I'm expecting at least 200k plus profit from this bloke. Good job security. He will play through the midfield as well. I think there is a lot to like about this pick, particularly with that added DPP flexibility. So really, really happy to have Jimby at D5. At D6, you may be expecting Conor McKenna here, particularly given the fact that I am a Lions man, but I've gone a little bit cheaper and gone with Charlie Constable. As I've got written down there, a real surprise packet for me from the preseason. When it was mooted that he'd be looking to play down back, I thought surely not. He doesn't really possess the skills to make that position his own. He's not too quick. I didn't really rate his disposal efficiency, but he's played really well there. And I think it's certainly his spot to lose for the first few weeks of the season anyway. I think he's a really good on-field option. We saw what he did in the Pracky match. 73 Supercoach points. That is more than serviceable for our D6. So I'm all on board. Charlie Constable got that DPP flexibility, which is really nice. There's a few mid defenders this year to select from, and I think he'll certainly be one of the best. Take some bonus kick-ins. I think that's fantastic. As I said, Weller is coming back from the side. I think Powell will be entering the side soon. So what happens with Constable when these guys are fit? I'm really not too sure, but at this stage, given the fact he's got some nice job security early on, I'm pretty happy just to lock him in and hopefully get between a 65 and 70 average. At D7, I've brought in one of my favourite players in the competition. It is the Pepsi Max King, Darcy Wilmot. Now, didn't set the world on fire in the Pracky match, only the 52 Supercoach points, playing mainly off a wing, but it's not really a position that's known to yield a great Supercoach average. He is rookie priced. We don't need him on our fields. All we need are 50s to 60s, and we'll be quite happy. Will he quite get to 60s? I'm not quite sure, but I actually don't mind his job security at the moment. This is purely a gut feel from a Brisbane supporter's point of view, and many people may disagree with this, but I think that they've almost looked for where they can just fit him in. They're so desperate to get him in the side. Where can we put him? So there's a lot of traffic down back at the moment with, you know, your Starsfids, your Riches, your Colemans and these types. It's probably the wing spot that is most up for grabs. And I think that's why they've got him there. He certainly has the attributes to play well there, but they just really rate this bloke. Remember, he came in for our finals last year. Great temperament. So I don't think he's going to score overly well from week to week, but he will definitely be good enough for a bench spot. And if he's named come round one, I think he's a pretty easy lock in our sides. And rounding out the bench at D8, this guy is another really, really easy selection, already been confirmed for a round one debut. It's Lockie Cowan. Again, similar to Wilmot, didn't set the world on fire in the Pracky match. 57 Supercoach points, but again, that is fine for a 117k rookie. Averaged a whopping 141 in the NAB League, so we know he's got the junior numbers to back it up. Obviously highly rated, confirmed to be playing round one, and given the fact he is playing the first game of the week, it is a really easy lock. There was a lot of questions around who would get this spot. Would it be Cowan? Would it be Chincotta? They've gone with Cowan in the end. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because surely Chincotta plays at some stage of the season. And whenever that point is, he's going to be a really easy downgrade for us. So that is the defensive line. Let me know what you think. Alrighty, time to get into the midfield now. This is where the big boys play. Have I decided to go with both Rory Laird and Clayton Oliver? Have I faded them both? Have I just gone with one? Well, I have just gone with the one. A tough decision, but it's got to be Rory Laird. I can tell you from experience that not owning this bloke can really hurt you. There just wasn't any point in the season last year where I could bring him into my side. He's the most consistent player in the game and only went down 9 grand from his original starting price last year. 9 grand. That is absolutely phenomenal. End up going above 700k for stages during the season as well. absolutely unstoppable. And I was really hoping that his ownership would stay around that 10% mark like it was during the majority of the preseason. But I think some people have jumped on late with some question marks, possibly around Clary's role. For those people that are selecting one of the two, I think some people have shifted their thinking and are now going with the desk Rory Laird. 151 Supercoach points, 71% CBAs. He is an absolute perma captain and has a great opening draw. He'll be able to sleep in his own bed for 4 out of the first 5 weeks. And I think that that's really, really important for players and a real bonus, particularly for those blokes that don't play regularly in Victoria. He loves tackling, so if he does get tagged, which is usually pretty rare, he can still put that defensive pressure on and rack up the points through tackles as well. Now, I did say that he rarely gets tagged. Doesn't get a heap of respect from the rest of the competition, Rory Laird, but Adam Kingsley has already come out and stated that they will look to put a fair bit of pressure on him come round one. So something to look out for, but I think generally there's not much to worry about with the Rory Laird selection. I think you're getting what you pay for, and each week you should be able to lock in a pretty decent captain score. At M2, I have gone back to the well, a little bit of a structural change here, gone a little bit lighter down forward as compared to how I was looking just a week ago. He's one of my favourite players in the competition, starts the season like an absolute freight train. It's Lachie Neale. I just had to go with him in the end. I did make a bit of a structural change and decide to go with another big boy in the midfield as opposed to starting with another premium forward. And I think Lachie Neale fits the bill. I've just got lots of question marks around some of the top price premiums this year. And Lachie Neale was one of the players where I had the least amount of question marks. He just did Lachie Neale things in the Pracky game, 121 Supercoach points from 88% CBAs. 30 plus touches. I think the addition of Dunkley will really help someone like a Lachie Neale. And I don't think that it's a wonderful idea to jump on him after the bye. He's got a pretty nice draw for the first 12 weeks. And then after the bye, pretty soon up, he comes up against Hawthorn, Sydney, and I think another team that may potentially look to tag him. He is a red hot starter. Apart from that injury interrupted year in 2021, go back and check out how he starts the season. He can certainly price you out, similar to like a Rory Laird early on. And so if I'm keen on bringing Neale into my side at any stage during the season, I'm pretty much going to start him, I think. I think that's the best decision there. He's got a massive ceiling, but we know he's a bit of a tag target. But as I said, with the addition of Dunkley, I think that helps me out a little bit. Brisbane have a really dangerous midfield now, so hopefully he may be able to get a little bit more freedom. I think he's a pretty safe pick for us in 2023. At M3, I've gone with an easy lock here. Has not left my side all preseason. It's Marcus Bontempelli. This man is going to be such a joy to have my Supercoach side each week. A phenomenal, phenomenal player. My prediction to tie for the Brownlow with Josh Dunkley this year. A reminder of what he could do when he's actually playing through that midfield in the Pracky game. 145 Supercoach points from 64% CBAs and 10 clearances. Look, it was against North, but if you watch the game, you would have seen how this bloke looked. He looked absolutely sublime. And given the fact that he's not really needed up forward now, due to the fact they've got a heap of tall timber up there, he should spend the majority of his time in the midfield, racking up those points. Clearances, contested possessions, can always run up for a nice goal as well. I've got some more question marks on Jack Macrae. I'm much more confident on Marcus Bontempelli. And if he gets on a really, really hot run, another bloke that can really price you out. So one of the easier premium midfield selections for us this year. I'm rapt to have the Bont representing my team at M3. At M4, have I gone with some mid-priced madness? Not quite yet. I'm going with someone who I think is an absolute uber breakout contender this year. It is the Green Machine. The Green Machine now owns this GWS midfield, and I think this year he is going to go bang. In the Pracky match, 130 Supercoach points from 74% CBAs. He's a contested beast, and we know that his game is built for Supercoach. Had a really red-hot start to the season last year, but sort of tapered off. I think a lot of that was due to his tank, but he's been working extremely hard in the off-season on that, and I expect him this year to be able to run out games a lot better. He's got a nice opening fixture, which I think would be really beneficial for him. And as I've got stated there, my number one Uber breakout contender for 2023. He just ticks so many boxes, Tom Green. And I think in the years to come, he's going to be an absolute super coach premium. Reminds me a lot of Josh Kennedy from Sydney. So another bloke that has really not left my side all pre-season. I'm pretty happy with these top four: Laird, Neil, Bont, and Green. I all believe that they have a strong case to end up very, very close to either the top four for those first three, or in Green's case, most likely the top eight. If he doesn't quite get there and even gets around the 10 to 11 spot, I'm still happy with that, because I think at the price, he still does present some pretty good value. At M5, it is finally time for some more mid-price madness. A very, very highly owned player going into 2023. It's Jacob Hopper. I don't think Hopper needs a lot of discussion because he's a really highly owned player. I think he's the safest bet out of all the mid prices, has the best job security and the best role as well. Didn't set the world on fire, didn't look overly great during the Pracky match. 93 Supercoach points, 81% CBAs and 9 clearances. But if he didn't look great, still managed to pump out a 90 score. I still think that that's okay. He does have a history of averaging around the 90 mark, and to make 150K, he'll need to average around 88. So that's what, 5 points less from what he did in the Pracky match. Didn't look great, as we mentioned. So I think a really, really safe pick. Not a lot of discussion needed. I think that most of us should just have him locked in our midfields at this stage. Have I decided to go another mid-pricer? Well, just last week I did, but for now I'm going down a little bit more and bring in the 2023 Rising Star. I'm going to make this really, really, really simple. Lock him in. Don't think about it. He'll average 85 plus this year. 85 plus for Will Ashcroft this year. An absolute no-brainer to start in our fields. At M7, this guy bolted into my side after a red-hot Pracky match. It's Cam Mackenzie. Now, I said that Jacob Hopper didn't really impress me too much in the Pracky match. Didn't really pass the eye test too well, but this bloke certainly did. Cam Mackenzie, very, very close to a ton. Why didn't they just scale him up one more to give him triple figures? 99 Supercoach points in the Pracky match from 61% CBAs. He was a real late rookie bolter for me after the Pracky match, but Steve from SDS Supercoach, when he came on for our Hawthorn team preview, was all over this bloke and said a very, very good chance for round one. So great prediction there, Steve. Really good call, mate. Now, some people are a little bit worried about some Josh Ward vibes here. We know that he came out last year in the preseason, went bang. I think it was around a 120 type score. And then come the season proper, just didn't look like it at all. But I do have a little bit more confidence with Cam Mackenzie. I think he averaged around 105 to 110 in his junior days in the NAB League. So for me, he is absolutely locked for round one, and he needs to average 61 to make 150K. He's already gone very, very close to 100 in that Pracky match. So I think it's a pretty safe bet this year, and I'm really confident having him on field. And rounding out my on-field players in the midfield at M8, I've gone with Will Phillips. Now, only the 48 Supercoach points in the Pracky match from 62% CBAs, but one thing we really do need to take into account is that his disposal efficiency was terrible. He's not normally as bad as that. So given the fact that he just did not use the ball well whatsoever, I think there is some more meat in the bone. People have been a little bit scared off by that sub 50 score, but look at the role. He had 62% CBAs. That is good enough for me. We know with rookies that they're going to go up, they're going to go down. They'll have their good games and their poorer games where they don't really get involved too much. But I'm still really confident on Will Phillips. We know he's an early pick, a mature body. They'll want to get games into him. I think Clarko's a fan. Look, if you want to start him on your bench, I think that is fine. On field, also no problems with that. I'd probably rather field him over someone like a Davey, a Green, or even probably a Toad McLean in the forward line or midfield as well. So for me, Will Phillips is a decent on-field option, and I'm hoping for an average around the 70s. Time to fill the bench now. So at M9, I've gone with a bloke who rocketed into round one calculations, has been on my radar all preseason though. It's Oscar Baker. Now, funny story with Oscar Baker. I had a fair celebration during the Melbourne-Brisbane final last year. I was actually having a beer with Martin Pike and went up, a little bit of carnage with the drink and went all over Oscar Baker. And he just took it so well, took it like an absolute champ. I apologize profusely to this man, but he just smiled, gave me a thumbs up, and wished me all the best of luck for the game. So I'm rapt to be able to lock this bloke in my side as my first bench option here. 111 Supercoach points on the weekend, a late in, and took his opportunity with both hands. He did everything that you'd want to see. There are a heap of pressure acts, some scoreboard impact, some desperate plays. I think I've already mentioned on the previous video, the ball was close to going out, but he dove, whacked it back in, and I think that even led to a scoring opportunity for the Dogs. And the coaches would certainly be aware of this, and I know that they rate acts like that as well. So just looked desperate to get a spot for round one, did everything that he could, played a bit of a wing, half forward type role, but I think he's just locked himself away at the moment. Job security, I'm not too sure. There's a fair bit of competition for spots like that at the Dogs, but if he performs even half as well as what he did in the Pracky match, then I think he's got some pretty good long-term job security. If he has a poor match here and there, then maybe he finds himself out of the side, but he's only on our bench. We don't need him on field. Pretty comfortable with the Baker selection at the moment. Now, you do know that I love a little bit of DPP in my midfield, so it's time to get in that midfield defensive link. I'm going with Campbell Chesser. Another one who didn't look great during the Pracky match, only 34 Supercoach points from 61% time on ground, but he has had a solid pre-season. Durability is always going to be a little bit of a concern with Chesser, but he is rookie priced, adds that DPP flexibility for us as well. If something happens to him, I think he can even be a pretty decent loop option for us. Worst case scenario there, obviously, but he could be a slow burn. I just like having him in the mids. I love having that flexibility where I can link him up with someone like a Constable or a Jinby, maybe a Chincotta if he comes in during the season as well. So I'm not expecting great things from Chesser, more of a moving sort of a piece, adds flexibility in my side. And if he can average around a 50, make 150K eventually, that's probably good enough for me. And of course, if we've gone with some defensive mid DPP, we also need to go with some forward mid DPP. And I'm going to bring in Elwyn Davey. Unfortunately, JD, we didn't have J Davey into my side, but we do have Elwyn Davey into my side. 61 Supercoach points over the weekend from 79% time on ground. Looked pretty lively to me. Kicked a goal, 13 touches. We know that the small forward role doesn't usually generate a heap of Supercoach points, but he is on our bench, adds that DPP flexibility for us as well. And I think that he will play in round one. You've got Tipper, Snelling, a few other blokes that could be vying for the role, but I think they'll want to get games into him. He adds a little bit of X factor there, certainly some excitement for the fans as well. And it's a great link in between our midfield and our forward line as well. So I think it is his spot to lose for now. Who knows what happens with a couple of poor games? It is a tough role, playing that small forward role. There's often times where you just can't get into the game, and playing for Essendon, I do expect that. He certainly will have some weeks where he might go, Rioli sort of scores from last year, but he should have a couple of nice games in there as well. All he needs is a 70 or an 80 here to there, and he'll make some good cash. I really like the Davies selection, locked for me at M11. Into the rucks. Now, this has been a very stressful line for me this year. Originally, I was dead set keen on just going for a placeholder, but in the end, I've had to buckle. I don't think Cameron or Lysett are looking good enough to start at this stage, so I'm paying up a little bit more and bringing in Shrek Darcy. Now, Shrek was never really in my plans because I was really worried about that ruck split between him and Jackson. Now, I certainly think that will still be matchup dependent. For example, someone like an English, I see Jackson increasing that ruck percentage, but with some of the bigger body type rucks, I think that it will be mainly Shrek. I see Jackson as more of a forward, Shrek obviously as the number one ruck. So if I'm going to predict what I think that split's going to be, I'm going with about a 75-25% split. As I said, that won't be the same from week to week, but I think as a bit of a general prediction, that's around where I'm going. He's absolutely killed it during the preseason. We saw the two Pracky games, the official one obviously last week, 127 Supercoach points, 88% CBAs. This bloke absolutely dominated, and we know that he's got a massive, massive ceiling. What a great vice captaincy option he could be. A really sneaky one, just in case he gives us one of those 150 type scores, which he's more than capable of. And I tell you what, when he comes up against West Coast early on in the season, if Nick Nat is not fit and firing, which I don't think he will be prepared for possibly a 200 plus type score, because he is a bully and really dominates the lesser type ruck. So his durability, always a little bit of a concern, but if you look at the data from the last 2 years, that is certainly improving. And last point I've got there is that when he is resting forward, he can still take a nice mark, impact the scoreboard for some bonus points as well. So I don't love the ruck selections that we've got this year, but I think given his upside, given the fact he's had a ripping preseason, Sean Darcy is in for me. And at R2, you all know who this is. One of the easiest locks in the game this year. It's Rowan Marshall. For good reason, the most highly owned ruck going into 2023. Good luck, Big Benny. One of my good mates from Twitter, Big Benny, is actually not going with Marshall this year. So I salute you, my friend. I love the fact you're going away from the crowd, brother. But I'm certainly not going to follow you, mate. I'm locking in this great man. 155 Supercoach points on the weekend from 94% CBAs, 19 contested possessions. He is clearly the number one ruck, no longer in Ryder's shadow. I don't think that Campbell's going to affect him too much. He will be the number one man. At the start of the season, I was a little bit worried that he may be spending a bit more time forward, given the fact that up forward, St Kilda have a massive, massive injury crisis, but that won't be the case. All the talk in the preseason was about who we can actually use to support Rowan Marshall. So durability concerns, yeah, we had that foot issue last year, a couple of issues in previous years as well, but at the price, he's really, really highly owned and an easy lock for us this year. Without doubt, I think he is the best ruck option to select in 2023. And at R3, you know that I love a loop in my side. I think this guy is the perfect loop for 2023. It's Nick Madden. 8 out of the first 13 games for the Giants are played on a Sunday. With a loophole player, we want late games. So this bloke absolutely fits the bill. And I always love having my loophole at R3. For those people that tend to have, for example, a defensive mid loop or a mid forward loop, this is the issue. So often we want to use a loop to take advantage of a decent rookie score. So let's just say that we have the emergency on Baker. He absolutely spuds it up. What are you going to do then? You have to take that score if you want to take your vice captain's score. If you've got your loop as an R3, it's really, really easy. Just put the emergency on Marshall or Shrek, have him on field. If you use him, great. If you don't, all good as well. I just think it can be pretty dangerous having a loop in other lines. There are certainly some advantages to that, but usually most of the time anyway, I'm more than comfortable having my loop at R3. And as you might see in the forward line, I've got a bit of a plan to link him up with someone. Onto the forward line now, and I've already talked about some easy locks, but this bloke is the easiest of easy locks that you've ever seen in your life. The last time that you'll be able to select him in your forward line for the next decade, I think, it's Josh Dunkley. Another player here that does not need a lot of discussion. This bloke is an absolute beast, exactly what we needed in our midfield. And I'll tell you what, if you've been watching the channel for the last few years, you'll know how much of a fan I am of Josh Dunkley. And it was super exciting, given the fact that he has now made his way up to the Brisbane Lions. Being able to call him one of my boys officially, not just one of my Supercoach boys, but one of the Lions, is just fantastic. And over the moon with the Josh Dunkley edition this year. He's not going to be playing ruck like Crazy Bevo got him to do. He's going to be playing pure midfield. He will rest up forward, but as we've already seen in the preseason as well, he has kicked a goal every game. So some extra bonus points there, even when he's resting. I think that he has the potential to be the number one scorer in the game this year. I do really rate him that high. So if you don't select Josh Dunkley, I don't think you've got a chance of taking out the 50K. At M2, I'm bringing in one of the most talented players in the competition. Certainly some meat on the bone with this pick this year at the price. It's Connor Rozee. A great value selection, I think, at F2. Connor Rozee has all the tools to be one of the best players in the competition this year, and there is meat on the bone with this pick. Last year, only attended the 50% CBAs, but this is where the value comes in. For the first 5 weeks, only averaged 12% CBAs. In round 6, when Port played the Eagles, he went bang with a lovely 150 plus type score. So if he plays in the midfield, he should score well. In the Pracky game, 111 Supercoach points with 80% CBAs. I certainly don't think he's going to be getting 80% during the season, but we know that Boak's now probably moved out of that midfield. Horn Francis or a couple of other players may come in there, but I think he'll be one of the main blokes there. And someone like a Horn Francis, in my personal opinion anyway, probably affects someone like a Zach Butters a little bit more than Rosie anyway, but averaged 107 post buy last year. I think there's heaps of value with this pick, and I'm rapt to have him at F2. I think you can probably guess who this bloke's going to be. Another really popular selection this year, Timmy Taranto. Now, some refer to this man as Timmy the Butcher, but I still think he's going to be a really, really solid selection for us this year. On the weekend, 124 Supercoach points from 65% CBAs. He did average 113 with more than 60% CBAs in 2021. Only the 6 games there. Thank you very much, Janeth, for that stat, mate. Wasn't actually aware of that. So that really does push me over the line. As I mentioned, he can butcher the ball a little bit. He doesn't possess a lot of hurt factor, but I think he'll certainly get enough of the ball. He is a talented player, can be damaging up forward as well, but I think he'll spend the majority of his time in the midfield along with Hopper and probably Prestia. We will have other blokes like Bolton that are going to run through there, but they did recruit Tim Taranto to play in the midfield. They didn't recruit him as a forward, so I think he'll spend the majority of his time there. And if he can rack up around the 30 touches each week, then he should be pretty safe, I think, for 100 to 110 average. Now at F4, this is a bit of a scary proposition because I have decided to fade Errol. A little bit risky, I know, but the man that's taking his place for now is Nathan Fife. Now, I was very, very, very tempted to go Errol Goulden here, but I better explain why I'm not actually going with him at the moment. He has been in and out of the side, Errol, but at this stage, I am deciding to fade him, mainly because of the Nat 5 selection. Now, this is absolutely going to blow up my face. I'm guessing there's going to be some memes put out, and this is really going to come back to bite me. But I have a very, very bold prediction to start the year. I'm going to say that Nathan Fife averages within 5 points of Errol Goulden. It's a big call. It's a really, really big call, given the fact we've just seen Errol come out with a 188, playing more of a midfield forward type role. We know that Fife's going to be playing predominantly as a forward, but what I really, really love about the Fife selection is how he starts off the year. When do you want Nathan Fife in your side? Well, I'll tell you when I want him in my side. It's when he's fit, when he's fresh, when he's firing. He has had a flawless preseason to date, and I also want him when he's going to be coming up against some lowly opposition. First 3 matches, he plays the Saints, then he plays the Eagles, and then he plays the Roos. Talk about a great opening draw. 2 out of those 3 weeks, he does play over in WA, so I won't have to travel for that. I can see this man just having a red hot start to the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's averaging 100 plus over the first 5 weeks. Now, again, this may come back to bite me. I may look a little bit silly here, particularly given the fact that he is playing predominantly forward. But in all the practice matches, in all the intra clubs that I've seen, he has actually been damaging. Looked good as a forward, led up to the ball well, good overhead, as we always know with Nat Fife. Did get 90 Supercoach points in the last Pracky match, 3 goals too. A little bit of a concern last year was his accuracy, but I think he's looked to improve that during the off-season. Still a slight concern. Look, if he's getting 5 shots at goal and only putting 1 through the big sticks, he's not going to average well. So I am putting a little bit of faith in him improving his goal kicking. But as I mentioned, that dream run over the first 5 weeks, fullest preseason, is very, very hard to deny. He should be a quick flip for me. I'm hoping maybe around 6 or 7, I can move him on for close to 150k, maybe asking a little bit much there, but I have a fair bit of faith in the former Brownlow medalist. If he averages 85, he'll make 150k. I think that his spike scores should come earlier on in the season, which is the reason why I'm starting him. I don't think he can jump on mid-season. I don't think he's going to be a keeper. I don't have a heap of faith in his body, but while he is fresh, I'm pretty keen to start him and take advantage of that early draw. At F5, we've got another bloke who has rocketed into calculations after a ripping preseason match. I watched him pretty closely because he did play against my Lions. A bit of a risky pick here, but for now, I've gone with Tanner Bruin. Now, I must admit, I'm a little bit paranoid about this selection. It'll be really interesting to see what happens when team sheets come out. There were some expert writers from the AFL website that didn't have him in their round one side, but there was a bloke, a journo from the Geelong Addy, I think it was, who said that he's basically a lock for round one. So I hope that's the case. Talk about passing the eye test. He obviously came up against my boys, the Brisbane Lions, and looked absolutely phenomenal. 112 Supercoach points from 48% CBAs, 11 contested possessions. And this is what I really loved: 7 tackles. So a lot of defensive pressure. And I think Chris Scott will really, really rate that side of his game. He was the main trade priority for the Cats in the off-season. We know that Bose, Henry came in, but I think they were a little bit later on in the scene. They had put a lot of work early on during the season into Tanner Bruin. And I think a really, really important thing to keep in mind is how vital it is for players to be in a good mindset off the field. We all remember what he looked like when he was drafted by the Giants, just had that look of shock and almost disappointment on his face. So given the fact that he's now back in Geelong, I think that is great for his mental state off the field. I really rate him. We know that he was an early draft pick as well. So for me, I'm just going to wait for the team sheets. If he is named, he doesn't have to be named on field. Originally, I was more keen for him to actually be named on field, but I think if he's in the 22, he should score well. I think he'll play a midfield, half forward type role. And even in that half forward type role, hopefully he can push up to the stoppages as well, similar to a bloke that I'll be selecting next in my side. He'll need to average 85 to make 150K. So 112 Supercoach points over the weekend. I think it was only 19 touches as well. But the great thing about those 19 touches was that over half of them were contested. And as I mentioned before, he did have a lot of that defensive pressure. Some people have said he might be a sub risk, but I don't really think that he is. I think he'll be too valuable to the Geelong side, and I see him as a permanent fixture in 2023. Tommy Atkins, O'Connor's, Menegolas, Parfits, there certainly are other blokes that can run through there, but in my personal opinion, he's the most highly rated player from that list. And at F6, my last on-field forward spot goes to a bloke who may not have the best role, but does possess a lot of talent and has really impressed during the preseason. It's Sammy Flanders. Now, this could certainly be a Sheasel. I'm not overly sold on the Flanders pick, but look, what more could have he done in his particular role during the preseason? And that's the big question mark, isn't it? His role. We know that he's not going to attend a lot of CBAs, but the positive to this is that he can still score well as a half forward. 103 Supercoach points in the Pracky match, 30 disposals, 11 contested possessions, 4 score involvements, limited CBAs, mainly playing forward. But what I like about him is that he does actually push up to the stoppage. He has no problem finding the ball. We know what his numbers were like in the VFL last year. They were absolutely crazy. But remember, that was playing predominantly an inside midfield role. He's not going to play that role in the seniors, but I don't really think that that matters too much with someone like a Flanders. Has really good goal sense as well. Did play up forward as a junior for a lot of his time. So I am not overly confident with the pick, but at this stage, I like him a little bit better than Sheasel, and it does give me an easy exit strategy because Sheasel is under 200K. You've even got someone like a McLean, who I've mentioned there, around 178. So if things don't work out well for the first couple of weeks with Flanders, and if it's pretty obvious that I've made a mistake here, it's an easy downgrade before the price rises, and I don't think it's really hurt me too much. The upside is that he could average around the 80 to 85 mark. And if that's the case, he makes well over 150K. He needs to average right on 75 for that magical 150K profit. So there are some other players that have been floating through here, someone like even like an Oscar Allen. But if I'm comparing a West Coast key forward compared with someone who I know for a fact can rack up the pill wherever he plays on the ground, I'm most likely going for that player. And that's Sam Flanders for me. Added DPP flexibility is always a little bit of a bonus, so you can move him around. He's a bit of a moving piece in your side if you do have some DPP in your midfield. So for now, Sammy Flanders gets my F6 position. Only 2 more spots to fill on the bench now. At F7, I've gone with a bit of a security blanket here. Maybe a slow burn, but it makes me sleep a lot better at night having this bloke in my side, just in case. It's a Sava Radaglia. Now, I think he's actually had a pretty decent preseason, the Rat. 49 Supercoach points from 89% time on ground in the last pracky match. The practice match before that, I think he looked much, much better. Plenty of intercepts, tended to read the ball pretty well. Good job security early on, particularly with some of the injuries they currently have in the side. But even long-term job security, I think, is still looking okay due to that flexibility. Can play back, can play forward, can even pinch hit in the ruck as well. So I really, really like this selection. I think it provides great cover as that DPP swing. As I mentioned before, as an on-field option, I would be slightly concerned. So I'm much more comfortable having him on the bench. I think he'll also be great cover during those buys. So if you're going with Shrek and Rowan like I am, I think it's going to be a pretty popular selection this year. Now, we don't know that he'll be playing during this time, but hopefully will be, and hopefully he can cover one of those two spots that will be left vacant during that buy round. So for me, I'm comfortable having a Sava on my bench, not on field, and also have that security of him being my R3 swing. And at F8, another very, very easy lock here. I've heard he's an absolute character, an old mate of Spills. It's Fergus Green. Another player who was really impressed during the preseason, obviously a mature age recruit that's come across, knows the system really, really well, playing for Box Hill. 84 Supercoach points, great job security, knows the Hawthorn system, and best of all, one of Spill's good mates. So for me, like many, many other coaches, I think that this makes sense. Good short-term job security, can hit the scoreboard as well. Looked really, really impressive in every game that I've seen him play. So easy lock at F8, Fergus Green. So this is the final team, guys. We've gone with Doherty and Ridley as those keepers down back. Doherty, I think, has a great chance to end up as our D1 this year. Ridley is that 500k option who can really push up towards the top 8 defenders in 2023. We've gone with Yo and Jones as those mid-price options. Yo, I think, could deliver close to premium numbers for a little while there, but I don't think he'll be able to maintain it, particularly due to durability concerns for a whole season. But certainly think he'll provide some great on-field scoring options as well as some nice profit to make there as well. Jones, I think, is basically a lock to make 150k. Really solid on-field option, great security there. Same as Jimby. I think he should make 200 plus. Constable at 123k as an on-field option is terrific, with Wilmot and Cowan as a starter for round 1. Into the midfield there, I've gone up with Rory Laird. Hopefully he scores okay in rounds 1 and the Giants leave him alone a little bit there, but even so, I think he's going to be a fantastic captain for us throughout the whole season. Lockie Neal, my Brisbane man there at M2. I think a pretty safe selection. He should start pretty well. The Bont, an easy selection there. Green is that Uber breakout. Hopper is that mid-pricer. I think he makes 150k, goes around 90 for the season. Ashcroft, a no-brainer, along with McKenzie and Phillips. Got some DPP on the bench there as well, which I think is nice. In the rucks, I've gone with Darcy and Marshall. Wish I had have gone or been able to go confidently with a placeholder here instead of big Shrek, but I've come to terms with the fact that I do just need to pick someone, and Darcy I'm okay with at this stage. Would I prefer a Wits? Possibly, but I think that Darcy probably has a little bit more upside there. Marshall's a great pick. Madden with that loop. And in the forward line, we've gone Dunkley, who's a no-brainer. Rosie and Taranto, two very popular picks. I've put my neck on the line, selecting that Fife with a big call over Errol Goulden just to start the season. But I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that. And hey, if things don't work out with someone like a Fife or a Bruin, it's pretty easy to make a couple of changes in order to get another player in. And I will be using a boost if I need to, just before the start of round 3. Flanders there we've talked about, a little bit iffy, but I think he's got a little bit of upside, well, a fair bit of upside if things go to plan. If things don't work out well, it's certainly no disaster. It could be a McLean or someone. Just quickly on McLean, I was so red hot on him, but I just think he's a bit of a sub-risk. Yeah, I just didn't pass the eye test for me. It could burn me because he's got a heap of talent. I really love him, but at this stage, not quite in the side. Radaglia at F7 as that swing for me. And again, I could get Madden as a bit of a loop in my forward line if I need to. So that's always some nice security to have. And Fergus Green sitting there at F8. I think that he'll be a wonderful option for us there. Maybe a little bit of a slow burn at times playing forward for Hawthorn, but job security looks great. And I think many, many teams should have him in that position. So that is the final team, guys. Let me know what you think. There may be a couple late swaps, pending team sheets. But for now, it's all locked and loaded. So I would love some honest feedback. I'd really appreciate that. Remember, we do have unlimited entries in our Supercoach with DR group for this year. The code that you're looking for is 744-739, and the winner will receive that awesome ring I showed you before that's been donated by our friends at Supercoach Champions. We also have some spots left in our Prison League for 2023. I put a video out probably 3-4 weeks ago with all the information you need about that. But if you are interested, make sure that you jump in quick, because entries do close just before the start of the first game, round 1 on Thursday night. And remember, stay tuned for more in-season content. I'll be back with the Stockies each and every week, round reviews, Supercoach Swordplay podcast, and plenty of other collabs to come as well. So that is it for now, guys. Take care. Thanks again for all your support, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Good luck. Bye. And by the way, Shelley, you lost the bet. I did wear the glasses, so 2 weeks of reading, half an hour every night. Enjoy.